Hey everyone, welcome back to Trading Trench. I'm really excited to get Income Sharks on with me today. He is the micro cap guru on Twitter. So Income Sharks, thank you for joining me. Really happy to have you here for this. I think this is probably the first time you're ever going to talk about these on stream.
Yeah, this is the first time. I'm glad to finally put a name to the face. I know we've been in our DMs with each other for quite a bit, but it's good to finally be on your show.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. If you guys haven't checked out Phemex, make sure to visit the link below. They do have some promotions going on right now for deposit bonuses. Not only that, it's a great exchange for using size. And if you limit order in or out of your positions, you actually get paid to get those limits filled. So that's one great reason I like to use it. They've continued to add more altcoins lately, and their goal is to add even more. They also have spot trading with zero fees. So if you haven't tried out Phemex, I recommend at least just giving it a look. I know Income Sharks uses it as well. And we both really like it for, higher time frame and more swing positions. First off, I really got to ask you about that background there. Is that a shark tooth?
Yeah, it's a megalodon tooth. I figured I needed something a little that matched the brand.
You got to bring that over here so we can see it. Is that like your grandpa's tooth or something? Right? I'm glad you're wearing pants.
Yeah, I know. You got me.
Oh no, it fell over.
I'll just take it out, but it is
okay, I definitely got to see this. Damn, so that is huge. Okay, that's bigger than your hand.
5.5 inches, about 4 or 5 million years old, and I think they said the shark, based on the tooth size, would be about 50 to 55 feet long, which is pretty big for a shark if you've ever seen one.
That's epic. Did you get that on like an auction site or?
Yeah, I had a bid for it.
Cool, man. Very cool. That fits the whole Income Shark theme. I love it. This is about trading, kind of getting in behind the scenes and seeing what we actually do before we post and before we trade, right? Because a lot of people on Twitter don't really see that. And a lot of people don't really talk about that. So it's a great opportunity for them to kind of get behind the scenes, behind the computer with us and learn exactly what makes us successful. So really just to start off, I kind of want to get your background and kind of understand how long you've been trading and why you started trading.
Yeah. So originally my background, I was always been business, but I definitely did website development and kind of computers and a little bit software development. So I think when I first started, that kind of gave me a little bit of an edge because I was kind of more, I was honestly one of the few people that was in it for the tech from the start. I didn't have a lot of money to invest, but I really found like the code and I was looking at like the purpose of crypto and I was really excited about that. And that's kind of where I got started. And then once you start kind of making money, you realize, hey, this isn't just about the technology. There's actually a financial opportunity there. And that's kind of where I pivoted to like, hey, I'm going to use my kind of computer science background to analyze the fundamentals of projects. But when it comes to actual trading, I'm going to start implementing that. And I think for a while that really helped me just kind of give me an edge to kind of stand out with the space where you either had people that were really, really nerdy, really into the code, but had no idea how to trade, or you had the really good traders, but they had no idea if they were trading a meme coin or trading something of value. So that's kind of where I started. Heard about Bitcoin. I think it was like $300-400 at the time. I thought it was overpriced, of course. But then you start reading into it and you're just like, wow, this is great. And then Ethereum comes out and you're like, oh, this is even better. It's going to be faster. And like you look at the creator of Ethereum, you're like, oh, that's the guy. He's perfect. And that's just kind of my journey kind of started from there. And again, I didn't have a lot to invest with. I think I only started with a couple thousand, and I just kind of, again, made a lot of mistakes on there, but when you're early enough, you start rebounding and you learn faster and faster. So that's just kind of how I started.
That's really cool. I think a lot of people, there's kind of a misconception that you need a ton of money to make money in crypto. You really don't, but also if you have a smaller amount of money, you shouldn't expect to, 10 or 15, 20 exit in overnight, right? Like everyone that started, a lot of us start out with not very much money, less than 5 figures or, low 5 figures or whatever. And it wasn't in like 2 weeks or a month that we were, flipping 6 or 7 figures. It was over the course of years. So I think that we need to really let everyone know of the expectations they should have and be more realistic about it and not expect to be making these, 7-figure leverage trades overnight like you're seeing on Twitter, absolutely. Right?
Yeah.
Are there any traders or mentors that you had when you got started or that you look up to now?
So it was funny looking back when I first started, I would say I found Crypto Dog, Big Cheds, and those are kind of guys initially I kind of looked up to. And I remember even finding you. And I think God, I think at the time you had like 20 or 30,000 followers, and I only had a couple thousand. So it was one of those cool things where all of a sudden I make a post and NebraskanGooner comments or Crypto Dog or Big Cheds. And it's just like crazy how the space, like, I mean, the followers definitely don't represent value all the time. And it's just weird to see some people blow up for one thing or thing. And it's like, for me, I was at like 20,000, 50,000 for so long, but you accidentally get stuck in a controversy and all of a sudden a lot of followers come in. But it's just like one of those things where it is fun to look at like these people when you first start in the space. Like you're so excited when someone likes a post or shares a post, and it's just kind of cool to kind of keep infiltrating the community where they're starting to look up to you, or you get advice from both and kind of can give back and forth like we do on the regular.
Oh yeah. I enjoy our conversations a lot. And honestly, you really stood out to me as one of like the few people on Twitter back then that was actually making money trading, because that was back when you had all these people charging outrageous money in, at the peak of the 2017 bull run for their paid groups, which were basically them just being bullish on any coin that hadn't pumped yet. And all these people were funneling in. And then, by March, April, May, these people were out of business and their paid groups had folded because they didn't actually know how to trade. They had no idea about markets. They had no idea that markets could go down as well as up. And I through all that, a lot of counts just crumbled. And I was like, oh, wow, here's a guy that actually understands how to trade. This is really cool. He's actually he legitimately seems like he's making real money trading because he's posting, content ahead of time. Whereas a lot of other people, it was just engagement posting. So that was how you really stood out to me. And I do remember when you had like 2,000 followers, and now I think you've passed me. So congrats. That's really cool.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, we're both in the 200K club finally.
It's crazy. Yeah, I never expected that, especially so soon.
Absolutely not.
But it's cool to be able to help people. So do you have, on that note, do you have a number one tip that you would tell to new traders in the space?
I mean, it's always, I think, patience and risk management. You hear it all the time. People still neglect it, but I think those go hand in hand. It's like, you just have to realize when you take a trade, focus on how much you can lose, and you have to be patient, meaning don't expect once you get in, you're going to log in an hour later and see profit. Look at higher time frames, expect days or weeks for something to play out. And again, if you're looking all the time, it means you're either overexposed in your trade, you have too much money invested, or you FOMO'd in, you got in way too late. So I would say, I mean, if I had to pick one thing, it would just be patience. And I think patience just teaches you the most to say, hey, I'm going to wait to make returns. Try to make 5% returns a month. Don't try to make 500% in a week. I mean, it's just really that patience of just slow things down, let the trades come to you, and just don't overtrade. So I guess one word, patience, if that would sum it up.
Yeah, that's great. I think people they just see everything going up, right? And you have to be in that coin at that time to make that money. And if you went all in before it popped 100%, that was really lucky, but don't count on it multiple times. So like you said, if you're overexposed, you're going to be babysitting your trades, and you're probably not going to make money because you're going to be emotional. So it's best to compound those gains slowly over time. And it's very rewarding once you really start to see those gains actually compound. But most are too impatient, and they blow their accounts before they really start to see that compounding pay off.
Yeah. Or you have the classic scenario where people swear like the second they sell, it'll start dropping, they sell, and then immediately goes right back up. And it's like, there's a lesson in that. You have to learn, like, usually where you want to sell, that's where you should buy. And it's very hard to change that mentality, because you see a red scary candle, you want to get as far away from the coin as you can. But in reality, it's like, that's where the opportunities are made, and that's where the volatility comes, and that's where profits are. So you just really have to, it takes years, and it takes years to make it really simple, because at the end of the day, it becomes simple, but it took me 3 years to realize how simple it is. And that's something that's hard to teach.
So true. And actually, to build on that, I remember back when we both first, were getting more into trading, and especially low time frames, I actually remember us talking to each other and be like, okay, I actually really, really want to buy here, or I really want to sell here. I really, really want to sell. And we'd be like, that must mean we should buy. And we were talking with each other, and we were bouncing ideas. And one of us would be like, oh man, I don't know. This feels like it's just going to go up forever. And the other person would be like, oh, well, let's see if there's a short opportunity in it. Right. So maybe having somebody to talk to and bounce ideas off. I know that's helped us a lot over the years. So for anybody new, maybe you can find somebody that's, relatively on the same playing field as you, and just bounce ideas with them, because that definitely helped me figuring out low time frames and becoming so good at low time frames back when we'd always just kind of, DM back and forth about that kind of stuff, because low time frames are really emotionally driven, and you have to be really aware of the emotions that are in play on those time frames, and that's why so many people struggle.
Yeah, and especially with the lower time frames, every time we get in, we're like, oh, is this going to be the one that's going to be 1,000% return? Yeah. And you have to tell yourself, like, that happens never. Like, it's that rare time it happens, maybe once every few months. So you just have to be realistic. Like, hey, realistically, I'm going to get chopped after this. It's not going to happen much. Just take profits. And we always joke about it. It's like, as soon as we send a screenshot to each other, like, hey, look how much we're making, great time to close, because in reality, that's probably the peak. And it's just, yeah, that's something I've always learned. When I'm excited to share, I'm like, probably just close out.
I totally agree.
I'd be fine missing that one run that, again, by the classic 100x leverage trade, I got 3,400, the absolute bottom. And everyone's like, hold it. And I'm just like, yeah, but I'm up 5,000%. How much more can it go?
So let's just tell people that don't know this or haven't heard this, what exactly happened. You had, again, it was like what, like a $50 position or something, but you had, and again, if you're using high leverage, anybody watching this, it's not degenerate to use high leverage. It's degenerate to use high leverage with a large account and a large position, because your liquidation is so close. If you get a random wick or something on a $50,000 100x position, you could get liquidated immediately, and then price could go in that direction. If you're using a $50 or $100 position or whatever, $1,000 position, depending on your account size, at 100x, that can still be proper risk management. So just to clear that up. But what Income Sharks is saying is he actually did have a 100x long, generational bottom long, at what, 3,200 or something, the day that it crashed to the.
And it sucks because the only part, I was trying to do 500, but the system, again, all the exchanges were kind of crashing. So I kept trying. So I actually lowered my position, and then the markets kind of paused. And then I think like 30 seconds later, it was instantly up like 1,000%. And it's just one of those things you're like, okay. And you just kind of let it ride. And it's obviously, again, with such a small amount, it was one I was like, oh, I need to let this just keep riding. But same thing, you're like, here's $5,000. And I think end of the day, I was like, all right, that's fine. And I ended up rolling that into a lot more money. But at the same time, it's just one of those things where it's just like, I realize now like how rare that is. And anytime I am in a leverage position, I'm not expecting that. So I learned to just take profits a lot sooner and a lot faster, because over time that does tend to be the better strategy.
Right. You always think you caught the bottom at the top, and then you get a random wick or something, So when you're in profit, and like you said, when we send each other screenshots or something, if I ever send you a screenshot, or if I'm like, yo, you got to check out this trade I just nailed, I'm going to be like, all right, I got to close at least half because I'm feeling some emotions, maybe some euphoria or something. And that's great to have though too, and be able to acknowledge. And a lot of people try to like hide their emotions and shit, but it's like, it's helped us just to, it gives us someone to share some of our successes with and talk about our failures and our successes privately. And because you can't really do that with people in real life because they just don't understand it. And the money values are just ridiculous for people to even comprehend sometimes. So it is good. And I'm just realizing how useful that's been over the years to have somebody to really talk to about trading, and about how I'm feeling and just things like that. So I would highly recommend that to anybody watching this. So morning routine, do you have like a set start time that you log on? Do you have like a certain breakfast you go to, or do you have like anything you do in the morning to get ready that helps make you successful in crypto?
So there's definitely a phase where I was waking up a lot more for like the stock market open, because that kind of for a while was determining what was happening with crypto. So I usually kind of wake up there, but lately it hasn't been as important. But I've definitely, usually for me personally, I start the day, I just have to go to the gym, and I really try not to get on the computer first, because the first thing I just don't want to like engage. Because once you kind of get on Twitter and you're on my Discord and I'm like looking at charts, all of a sudden before I know it, it's like lunch. So I try to really make sure I'm like productive and I do some things before I start. And so usually for me, I just wake up, I just go straight to the gym. I might check kind of Twitter a little bit at the gym, but I really try to keep it too minimal. I just want to see if the market's falling apart or there's some crazy action. Other than that, I'm like, the markets can always wait. And that's something I really try to stress to my followers and stuff. There's always other trades. So yeah, I usually start off at the gym, then I'll come back and I'll kind of unwind and kind of trade for a while. And then I'm not really a breakfast person. So I'll usually kind of start the day kind of with lunch. And then, I guess that's kind of pretty simple little morning routine. Nothing too crazy.
Cool. That's awesome. I just got a Garmin smartwatch, and you can download music onto it. And so you don't have to bring your phone to the gym. So I just download music on it, connect it to my ear pods or whatever, and I don't have to bring my phone in. So that's been huge at the gym, especially.
Yeah.
Keeping me there as long.
Is that why usually you go to the gym, you come back, you're like, oh, I just missed this huge trade because that was on?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been nice. It's like you said,
But
it's nice to
good.
not be focused on Twitter and shit when you're at the gym, So I can just literally leave my phone in the car, go into the gym, and still have music. So that's been like one of my best purchases this year, was like definitely a Garmin smartwatch.
No, it's definitely smart, especially because I know everyone on Twitter, again, our dopamine rushes, we get so much like screen time that it's just like, it does really mess with you. And I remember when I used to trade, I'd be on the computer 14, 15 hours a day. And it's just like your sleep suffers, like you get stress levels. There's just a lot that goes on. So it's one of those things where you really want to minimize screen time, I think, for your emotions, for your health, for just a lot of reasons. And it's amazing. Like some days I'll be on computer only a few hours, some of my best trading days. 100%. Other days I'm glued for 12 hours. I was like, well, I lost money and I was on the computer all day. So it is something where I think going to the gym without a phone's a brilliant idea, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. It's been nice to get away, especially when you just have so many followers and you feel like you always need to be like, answering or something. Yeah, you're like, oh, what if when I get back, I'm gonna have 1 million notifications, so I got to check now to keep them unclogged. So what kind of setup do you use, like for your computer setup? Do you have like 1 million monitors or anything special?
No, just literally the 2 monitors. I mean, I used to do 1 monitor for a while, but then just having 2 screens just to leave something on the side. But
nice.
I don't know. I try to keep trading really simple, and I think some guys with 30 monitors, it's just overwhelming. I don't get the edge or the advantage for that. But
don't admit it, you're just too poor to get that many monitors.
I just can't afford it.
Maybe you can borrow like 10 of them from Silicone.
Yeah, what in his tower setup?
That is ridiculous. I can't even believe that like you can even set that many monitors up together.
That's just asking for emotional and stressful trading, which, shocker. I mean, he's
right.
Quite the emotional guy.
I don't even know how you see the top screen.
You can't.
Oh, man. Anyway, there's so many jokes to be made about that. Okay. All right. That was awesome.
When'd your dog get there? Has your dog been there the whole time?
Yeah, she's just
that was a floor mat or something.
She was like on her bed, and then I don't know. She came over here. Maybe she wanted some screen time. She's just like vegged out back there. It's funny.
I didn't notice it.
That's funny. Yeah, she was like curled up, and now she's just So what's the first website that you log into in the morning when you hop on?
Usually just TradingView. I usually like to just check out Bitcoin, Ethereum. It obviously kind of gives you the best, I'd say, best example of what the markets are doing. I will try to check coin. Like I would check the market cap to see what's kind of going on, or Bitcoin dominance. But other than that, I mean, obviously, I think just TradingView just kind of gives me the best example. Even just like Googling Bitcoin price doesn't usually do it justice, because sometimes you might be like, oh, it's it. Like, again, if you look at like TradingView, it's like we had the monster wick of 42,000. You could have logged in and be like, oh, it's only at 52,000. It wasn't that bad of a drop, but it's kind of important to know what it did before and after. So that's just something like I definitely say TradingView is just my go-to way to start the day.
How many other like windows do you have set up on? Because you have 2 screens. So do you have any like other windows you set up too when you log on? Or like, I mean,
I'll probably throw on like Twitter and Discord, and then just kind of stay on TradingView. And then if I'm researching other coins, though, then that's where I kind of like focus, and I'll just go to CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko, and that's where I kind of go down my research way with more fundamental analysis.
Cool. Is there any websites or special tools you recommend to traders?
I mean, there's some good scanners and stuff, and I think those are helpful. But for me personally, I just like to really focusing on less is going to be more for me. So I really try to focus on, I'll write down maybe like 10, 15 coins I'm really looking at, and I'll really focus on those versus like Twitter. I'll kind of keep an eye out and see what everyone's talking about. But I think when you try to do a lot of scanners and all these charts and all these alerts, you kind of get a little bit overwhelmed, a little bit emotional. So I really, really try to stay like as simple as possible, which is, again, it's easier said than done, but I try to keep my list of what I'm looking at and not try to get too many coins on the list per se.
All right, so now for my favorite part, we're going to get into the trading. Like, I really want to learn more about how you trade, what makes you successful, and I definitely want to ask you more about your micro cap gems that you are so famous for now on Twitter. But we'll start off with just the basics. You mentioned you have a watch list. Do you keep a watch list on TradingView, or do you keep a watch list anywhere, or do you literally just have them written down like you had said?
I wouldn't even say written down. A lot of it's just in my head. I kind of know my go-to plays. I think it would help to write them down, and maybe it's something I should do. I know CoinMarketCap has that the list where you can add and stuff, and that's something I kind of did for a while. But same things, you kind of get emotional when you look at the list and you see it up and down. So I just try to I don't know, kind of do my mental checklist, if that makes sense.
Point. Yeah, you don't see numbers and colors on a screen.
Yeah,
it's just all objective, tickers basically. And that's actually a good point, because I saw somebody say something on Twitter yesterday or the day before, and when I was scrolling through and I haven't looked at charts yet, and then when I got on and looked at charts, I automatically had the bias of what that person said, because I trusted them a lot too, right? So I trust their analysis. So I was literally just looking at whatever they said basically, and didn't even have an open mind like I normally would.
Yeah, when I hear it all the time, I'll have friends or Twitter, Discord, somebody's like, "Oh, why is this coin dumping?" And you log in, you're like, "It's down 1%. What do you mean it's dumping? It's barely moved."
You're like, "It's up 5% from where we bought it. What are you talking about?"
Yeah, or it's still in profit. You're like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" And then there's even times they'll say that's like, "Oh, it's dumping. The chart looks bad." I look at the chart and it's like, the chart looks really good. I'm actually going to buy here right when they're selling in panic. So it's just you try not to let other people influence you too much, or you kind of build on that. You realize hey, most of the emotional traders are going to be really frustrated and complaining at a certain point, and that's probably when you should buy. So that's something I do really like using Twitter for. Is you kind of do the opposite of what they say, and it generally works out pretty well.
Totally agree. So what happens when you obviously keep a small watch list? Some people have hundreds of assets on a watch list. It sounds like you like to be more around 10, and you'll just trade those. What do you Are you trading all of them actively? Are you literally just watching some of them? Do you have a rule where you're oh, well, this one sucks, I'm dropping it off the watch list? Or is that kind of just, spur of the moment?
Yeah, I'd say I just kind of manually would go look at all 10 of those charts. You kind of have the names you remember are the ones and I will admit, crypto Twitter is usually terrible for entries. If you follow a lot of people, they don't know when to enter, but I do really pay attention when people are really bullish on projects. I remember there'd be times everyone's RSR, it's going to be the best. It's so great. It's so great. But of course they're shilling it right at the top. So in my mind, I'm hey, RSR is good. I'm just going to wait for a better entry. And sure enough, hype slows down. Twitter gets really quiet about it. And then the chart finds a good support. And I'm all right, there's my entry. I get on that. And sure enough, it goes way back to where it was. And then they start talking about it again. And then you already have a way better entry than a lot of people got. True. So that's usually for me, if I don't fundamentally analyze it myself, I will trust a lot of Twitter hype. And a lot of these guys are really good at fundamental analysis. Again, just can't trade or they're too emotional. But I do pay attention to kind of the list of what everyone's really bullish on.
So is Bitcoin always the first chart you check when you log on in the morning?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably the first chart, just because even in when there's an inverse relationship, we still do see a lot of influence to Bitcoin, and it really just kind of dictates what the markets are kind of doing.
For sure.
Granted, there are those times where it's it'll be a month where Bitcoin is so flat, and I probably won't even check the Bitcoin chart. That's usually kind of a rare kind of window, but I would say I still would check Bitcoin first.
So true. Do you use alerts at all?
Yes, sometimes I will. When I use Super Trend, it is nice. I'll have alerts sent to my Discord when it flips, but a lot of those times I will kind of forget about them, or it's something I probably should be doing more. But it is helpful, especially if you're looking at a chart and you're oh, if this trend line ever breaks up, I should get in. And you'll look at a chart and all of a sudden it's pumped 100% from that. You're wow, I should have paid attention to that. So I do think alerts are very helpful to if you're waiting for a certain price on a dip or a breakout, I think setting those and being patient for those is actually really helpful. And that is something I think I probably should do more.
So true. We've all done that. Or even you and I will be talking. We'll be oh man, if this hits this level, it's going to go. And then we'll be oh, one of us will send the chart. We'll be there it is. And the other person will be dang it, I forgot about that. That's funny. Is there any certain coins you're watching right now?
So I've been pretty big into Syscoin. I really like the ZK rollups and off chain because obviously you look at Ethereum with gas fees, it's just terrible. But you still have so many people that are still really want to stay with Ethereum. So I am looking for those scalable options, Dusk, Sys, and then going with the micro caps. I am really excited still about the Mute exchange because if they can honestly deliver the trading without gas fees, private transactions, and using the ZK rollups. And again, they've partnered with Sys, so I do trust that a lot more. Those are kind of ones I'm looking at. Other than that, I think a lot of coins right now are really dependent on Bitcoin and kind of the market overall. So I wouldn't say there's a huge bias from what you're picking as long as you're kind of getting in now. Because I do think there's going to be a little bit of a relief or a little bit more balance, especially seeing stock markets move. But yeah, I'd say as far as altcoin goes, those are kind of the ones I'm looking at now. Other than just everything in general is probably going to move with Bitcoin and Ethereum right now.
Do you like to market in or set limit orders?
I used to be really big on limit orders, but I would always get really annoyed because you have a limit order set, looks like a great entry, and all of a sudden you look at the chart, you're like, wow, I have a great trade, and you look and it would never get filled. So for me, I do tend to do a lot more market orders because market orders says like, hey, I want to get in right now. And if my entry is not good enough for a market order and it needs to be a limit order, then it means I need to just wait. So I do think for a lot of beginners, I would actually recommend limit orders because people kind of joke, but it's usually where you put your stop loss is where a good entry is going to be. So if you can, again, talk about that patience, if you can be patient and put a nice limit order where you think it'll go, I do think in the long run that's going to help. But I think the best way to do it is maybe like 50% market order in where you think it is, and then put a limit order lower. So worst case, if you do get a drop, you are going to at least get a better dollar cost to average right off the bat.
Yeah, that's a great tip. It's kind of just like laddering in entries, basically.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Well, that is something I do. Even if I market order, I will set bids a lot lower to dollar cost average because scaling in and out is something that really will help with FOMO. Because if it drops more, you're excited. If it goes up, you're excited. So that is something that helps with emotions.
Do you have a set risk management strategy or like a set of rules that you follow?
Yeah. So I'm about 1 to 2% for risk management with spot trades. And that's like, again, it sounds really slow and I'll do these challenges on Discord to kind of prove that it's not. But yeah, even if you start with 10,000, you're entering a trade with $1,000 with a 10% stop loss. And so your risk is only $100 per trade, but you realize over time, these small little losses don't devastate your account. And then you actually start seeing compounding interest. And that was like one of the Binance challenges I did a while back, I think and it was obviously when there was the bull market. So I know that's a big part of it, but it's just like starting with 20,000 and turning into almost like 800,000 just by taking 1% risk continually. And it's just like, yeah, you get stopped a lot and it seems annoying, but all it takes is a few of those coins to do 300, 400%. And then you don't care about the little stop losses getting hit. So I do think even with small accounts, 1 to 2%, like just really focus on small losses and big wins, and easier said than done. But that is something like people, you're like, oh, I only have 5,000. I want to become a millionaire. I need to do 100x leverage with 5,000. No, you're going to lose. Like it just doesn't work. So you just have to really get that mindset of you might have 3 or 4 months of really slow trading, but you're going to learn a lot. But once that starts compounding and starts going up, you're going to be like, okay, that was definitely worth it. And then you're going to be a lot less stressed.
So would you want to share that spreadsheet with us for people to be able to kind of get a visual reference? And this was all live in your Discord. So there wasn't like you could have, fibbed any of this. You were posting this as it was happening.
Yeah, these were all live trades as they happen and stuff. And again, I used to have all the Excel sheets, but now we're doing a new challenge. But this is just one of those things. Again, you're going to have like some of those months, like looking back in September, not a good month, but the month before and the month after completely makes up for it.
Right.
And especially for this challenge, I was trading the Bitcoin pair. And so obviously as Bitcoin's going up, you're seeing a lot more growth. And that's one of those things where one of the best ways to accumulate Bitcoin is trading altcoins to get more Bitcoin. And that's just something that I was doing. And again, it works out well when the markets are hot. But even on the months, like these should have been months, I think people were losing 50 to 60% of their portfolio. Right. You're losing, but you're not losing as much as you could be because you're keeping those stop losses really tight. And I mean, you even look in this like example, there's a lot of red,
There's a lot more red over there than green, actually.
Yeah, but you look at like the winners are a lot bigger, and they make up for the losses. So you're 0.32 profit, and then usually the losses are going to be a lot smaller. And yeah, so that's just kind of a mentality I've learned. And I really just stress that it's like, it's going to be boring few months, but once you can double your money, or you can start actually showing consistent 5-10% growth a month, that's literally all you need to have some pretty good returns.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think anybody would complain about this 540% increase. And that's honestly probably a lot more than most people make at their jobs or whatever, or just trading. But you could see here, like some of the 2020, especially, like you started off obviously with a really good month, but then it was like 6%, 11%, which is still great growth. Yeah. But a lot of people would get impatient and they'd be like, all right, I just did 60% in May. Now in June, I've got to do another 60%, or I can do more. And now in July, I've got to do more. And it's like, if the market's not hot, you're probably just going to see less gains. That's just how it is. If you can only outperform the market to a certain extent. And if the market's not that hot, you pretty much just have to get lucky to be in the plays where it is hot, because there's so many plays that fail when the market's not super mega bullish.
Yeah. And even like good financial advisors that are investing all of everyone's accounts, like there's just years where they don't even make a profit. It's a 1% loss. And that's just like, it's all about preserving your money and keeping the losses really small. Cause I mean, I think we've all done it before, when, especially starting out, like you just have some days where you're like, wow, I lost 80% of my portfolio, or like you just completely get decimated and you're like, I don't have money to trade. And as long as you have money, you can create more opportunities and make money. But once you lose it all, it's like you're done. So you really need to keep losses small.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of people focus on their losses and not what they have. Like even people's accounts can be up like 500%. And then they go back down 20%, and all they can think about is what they're down, and they don't even look at what they're up. And they're just trying to chase their previous profits, and they just end up losing because it's like an emotional battle.
Yes. Or the most common thing is people take a really bad loss, a 30% loss. And the next trade, the revenge trade, where they're like, oh, I got to make that back up. I don't want a loss. And then they're down 60%, and they're like, well, now I'm really screwed. I have to go all in. And then they lose it all. And they're like, crypto sucks. And you're like, well, no, it's your emotions. But.
Yeah. And actually, I see a good example for 2021 on there. You have a 17% loss in April. And then in May, you only had a 6% gain. In June, you only had a 7% gain. And like, you still would technically be negative from your all-time high. But when you look back, like you were up like 200 or 300% before that. So it's like, if you were short-term minded, you'd be like, oh, damn, I need to make up this 17%. I need to make up the 17%. And then you see you just being consistent. Like this just shows real strong consistency to me, which we don't see a lot. And that's just like, that's really impressive for me to see. You've got the 6%, the 7%, and you're just like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing because it's produced 70, 80, 100% in previous months, and it produced another 20%. And you probably didn't change a thing. You weren't like trying to make gains faster to get that back. You were just like, trust the process, have a long-term mind about this, and just keep going with what works.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, again, easier said than done, but that's usually how it works. And again, Twitter, it's like Twitter loves to see that one person that made a 7-figure trade or something obnoxious, but it's like, that's not consistent. When you see these huge gains posted on Twitter, generally those big gains are going to be followed by big losses. And some accounts are brave enough to post those big losses, but I can tell immediately the kind of traders that are going to be around here next year and the ones that are just going to be gone, because when they're posting 7-figure losses or 7-figure gains, like that's just way too inconsistent. And I know that's not 1% risk, because I know they're not worth 100 million. So it's like, to me, they're basically going all in, and they're having very huge fluctuations, which is not sustainable. And consistency is very boring. But I mean, it's honestly, that's how the richest of the rich are making a lot of their money, especially in traditional markets and even crypto.
That's how you survive. So, you have a 50% down. You have a 50% down month. You need 100% next month to make it up. So it's just limiting that. So what is your most favorite indicator that you use?
That's a close tie between super trend and OBV, but I guess we'll just do super trend because it's a little bit easier to explain. OBV is just one. It doesn't miss much, but it's just a very slow, long process, and there's a lot of tweaking I kind of do to use it. But I think super trend is probably my new favorite, greatest and latest indicator.
I do see you posting that a lot.
All right. So I do like super trend a lot, but I think it doesn't do justice without using OBV. And I'll kind of explain why I use super trend with OBV, because I think it's very important with these markets to not rely on just one indicator, but to kind of get the full picture. So for me on the daily chart, I do like looking for, I call these double buy signals. With super trend by default, this is the default setting. And I will go on here and I will actually add the ATR multiplier, which is this one. I will change it to 2. And I think that kind of gives me the signal activates a lot earlier. So I think that's better for entries and exits. So a good example back here, back in, what was that, October, you can see that it printed 2 signals about the same time. So for me, I'm paying a lot of attention on the daily when I see the double flip. And then when I have the double flip, I'm looking at OBV, what's happening. And you look right here, we have some resistance, and right there, sure enough, you're going to see a break. So right now I'm already paying attention. We have a double bullish buy. I'm getting confirmation that OBV, which is based on volume, is spiking up. And for me, in my opinion, I'm like, hey, that's a very strong buy. So back here, 11,000, 10,000, I'm definitely looking to buy. And once you see these indicators, it does hold bullish this whole time. On any of these touches, I do, assuming we're in a bull market or I'm pretty confident in the trend, meaning OBV keeps kind of rising, keeps going up, I'm going to actually add to my spot positions every time it's kind of touching this line. And again, as long as it doesn't break, I'm adding. Still bullish, I'm adding. And it's kind of like one of the ways, especially in a ranging market, it's just a very good way to keep adding positions. And then sure enough, OB right here, OBV starts making a little V spike. And that's kind of where you start to see a reversal. Sure enough, super trend flips bearish and we kind of get some chop. And that's kind of like, hey, I've made a lot of money from this buy signal. I've been adding on the dips. I'm going to really de-risk up in this area. And it does start picking back up again. But same thing, I'm kind of waiting for this chop. And back here, we're getting another double buy signal. We're looking at the OBV. What's OBV doing? It's actually rising. So I'm feeling good about that one. But with this one, you can start to see the trend right here. Boom, it breaks here. Even before the super trend flips bearish, I do see it breaks here. So I'm starting to get out of the position. And that's just kind of how I do it. And you'll see it's like when there's a one buy here, it's not as strong. OBV is kind of flat, and then it kind of falls off. So for me, I'm really looking for the tighter the buys together, the more strength. Those are pretty good. These are pretty good. But again, OBV is kind of flat. And then there. And so I guess this last example right here, we got a double flip. OBV is rising, showing strength. And that's one I'm going to hold. I'm going to add on the dip. And then here we actually get the OBV back to downtrend. So I'm probably cutting. And yeah, just kind of like that. And again, it takes a little time to kind of massage that and see the difference between strength or kind of understanding if the market's ranging or if it's kind of choppy. But that's essentially how I use super trend and OBV on the daily time frame.
Well, and that's kind of cool because actually I see a lot of sideways sometimes from the super trend. So
yeah,
like I can just tell when it's like moving upward is when you're going to get kind of your best entries for longing anyway. And then when it's kind of sideways, it looks like the market's literally just chopping. So there's no trading there.
Yeah, to mention on that, like you can see right here, like the OBV is really flat, or the super trend's really flat here. OBV is really flat. It's like it's not a good, exciting level. And sure enough, what happens? It drops. Versus you're seeing like this super trend. I mean, that line is just going up and up and up and up, and that's pretty easy just to keep holding.
Okay. So you had mentioned CIS is one of your favorite charts. Can we pull that up and kind of just see like what your thought process behind that is and why you took interest and why you entered where you did?
Yeah, so pretty good example with the super trend, but this is definitely one. I started finding out again, ZK rollup, something I'm still very bullish on, and I'd found that CIS is working on implementing that. So I was really paying attention here. And I was like, I don't know, the chart's looking a little choppy, but then I was like, fundamentally, CIS is a good play. And usually fundamental plays, you got to get in before the hype, and usually the charts kind of suck, but I'm like, hey, I'm going to start getting my entry in here. So I got in right about here. And then sure enough, we get a little bit of a pump. We get the double bullish that I'm talking about, strong uptrend. And I was like, all right, I'm adding more to my position. Nice uptrend. I did add more here just because I know it's a fundamental long-term play for me. We had Bitcoin kind of crash, which kind of took out alts, but With the major super trend, we're still bullish. It's still trending up. I still like $1 for my kind of short-term, long-term target. So for this, using my example, this is definitely a place where you want to actually add to the position. Fundamentally, I think it's really good, and I think the chart still shows strength.
All right, be right back. I gotta go buy some sis.
And so another example on the daily, you got like a downtrend, and to me, that's such a strong OBV that doesn't match the price, which is a good thing. Yeah. So I would say if I was not already in a position, come in here, you can even put a stop pretty tight near the super trend and kind of target there. That's honestly how I'd place this as it currently looks.
It's a good risk to reward. Not only that, It actually kind of looks like the Bitcoin that you showed when you got the double buy like way earlier at 11K. You had like kind of that quick up and then just kind of some sideways for a little bit while it reaccumulated, and then hopefully it would continue upwards and with that strong OBV. Yeah.
So if this OBV wasn't as pointing up, I wouldn't be as excited, but kind of knowing that Bitcoin kind of crashed everything, to me, this is a very generous dip, especially when we saw how strong it was going. And this was even when a lot of alts weren't doing too well. It was actually outperforming Ethereum and a lot of the big major alts.
I mean, that OBV is actually insane. It's like going straight up the whole time it's been dropping. Like, I don't even know if I've ever seen that.
No, like it's almost like a bear div, which actually would have played out pretty good here, but it's just kind of like, and I think that's what's tough with OBV on a lot of altcoins. Volumes kind of different, and I'd say it's pretty inconsistent. So
you gotta have to stay on high time frames.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I really got to get into what everyone's been waiting for, and what I've been waiting for is I want to ask you more about these microcap gems that you find, because half the time I can just blindly throw a little bit of money into some of these and they're like up 2x in a matter of days. And that's even before you mention them on Twitter or anything. Because of course people are going to argue and say, oh, he pumps his coins or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I think actually you've been posting about these since you had a very small follower account. You never I've never seen you like dumping them on anybody or anything. So I think that you are of all the big accounts on Twitter are kind of like the gym hunter guy, right? And you like have the ability to post about these because you share with us great projects early on that have strong fundamentals. And you're not just trying to like shill your bags, as some people would call it. So I'm really curious. I really want to learn more about what you look for, how do you even find these so early on? Like, where do you go? Is there like a place that you just go and like people are like talking about low caps?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, again, Twitter's pretty good resource. I mean, if you can find some of these guys, they do show a lot of microcaps and you really have to sift through all of them. But there's some good ones on Twitter, but honestly, I do a lot of manual looking for them. And again, part of like me is like kind of a software developer and website developer. If I'm able to create the coin, it's just a huge red flag for me. I want to see that they're able to do things that I can't do. And if they can do that, I feel a lot more confident. And that's why I'm just so against these meme coins, because within 2 minutes, I can create a meme coin, whatever I want. I could throw up a website. I could pay for a logo. I could do all that. And it's amazing how many people keep falling for these meme coins and they get rugged and they lose money. And it's just like, I want to invest in projects that offer something unique, something I can't do, something that's more than just copy and pasting code or building a meme coin. But anyway, so I will go to, I got to go back to, I'll go to CoinGecko. I'll do the old coins. And this is where you can actually start digging in there. And again, there's going to be a lot of trash, and don't expect to just come here and just find magical gems. There's going to be a lot of garbage, but I'll come in here and I'll start with I'd say 1 million to 10 million market cap. That kind of gives you like a range where there's some volume. Cause I mean, if you're going this low, I mean, it's probably a dead project, but I'd say 1 million to 10 million. It's nice to see 1 million in volume. If I can see volume that matches the market cap, it shows that a lot of people are buying. It's kind of a supply shock. So
cool.
We'll start with like that. And I would search here. And then again, there's no real good way to do it, but I will go through every single one of these coins and I look at the name, I look at the project, I go to the website. Is the team doxed? Is whatever. So, and I'll even look at the time frames, and you kind of want to see something that's trending up. So like, for example, the Celestial kind of looks like it's doing something. I would pop it up in a new tab. I would pull up a chart. I mean, it's kind of showing some good growth. It looks good. And then I would even come and like go to the Twitter, see what's happening. I'd go to their website, kind of figure out things. And I mean, this whatever slash already kind of looks good.
Yeah, I mean, that chart, just eyeballing it, the chart actually does look pretty good. And I have 100,000 followers.
It kind of looks suspicious to me because, again, how are you that low with that many followers? And a lot of people do buy followers. But maybe they have, I mean, I don't know, this looks like a game. Yeah, maybe it's one I'll go research more. I mean, it looks interesting enough.
Yeah.
Definitely like a metaverse play, and it looks like they've actually coded out some stuff. So, cool. Yeah, so anyways, I'll go through these coins and I'll just kind of manually look, see what's trending, what's going up. And that's just a process that's going to take a lot of time to kind of learn. And pretty easy to like tell right off the bat. I mean, fluffy coin, to me, that's just automatically meme coin. Probably has no use case. Sorry.
Hey, chill, man. I went all in on fluffy coin this morning.
You go pretty heavy and fluffy. But I mean, I would say that was kind of like my initial process. And then, of course, once I'm on Twitter, I'm going to reach out to these projects. I'm going to see what they're doing. I'm going to message. And again, I go on their Telegrams. Like I did this when I had 1,000 followers. You go on their Telegram, you just ask around. You figure out what's going on, who the devs are. And again, I don't do paid shills. I don't disclose. I don't do any of that stuff. I just do what I've done from the beginning. I just talk to the teams. I talk to the supporters, and you get a really good idea of like how passionate people are in the project, if they're worried about a scam and things like that. So that's just kind of my microcap process.
Cool. How do you know, like, do you ever just like flip some of these because they have good initial signs? And how do you know which ones to hold for the long term that are like, like Mute, you got into that and it's like up 20 or 30x or something crazy. But then there's other ones where you're like, okay, this is up, 3 or 4 or 5x and I cut it.
Yeah. So usually my rule of thumb with microcaps, I will try to take profits at 2x and 3x. And I think if you usually forget the exact math, but it's like 30% at 2x and like 40% at 3x, that's your initial investment out plus profit. So I will try to take that out, and then I kind of leave it as a moon bag. But yeah, some of these projects, you can kind of tell it's like some will get in knowing they're like, hey, we have a big announcement coming up. And I'm like, all right, I'll see what the announcement is. And all of a sudden the announcement is delivered and it's kind of weak. And then I'll just kind of like, I'll just kind of hold the position. I won't add more to it versus like a Mute. I wasn't even really talking about it on Twitter and just kept going up and up. So that's one I'm like, hey, there's a lot of volume coming in. The use case is good. There's a lot going on. That's when I will keep adding to on dips versus some of these other ones. Again, microcaps very risky, and I start with very small amounts. So if I'll jump in to maybe the celestial one, say I get in, maybe I throw a few grand, and for me that's a risk. That's very small risk.
All right.
And then if it starts delivering, I see the price keep going up, then I'm gonna start adding dips and keep holding. Versus if it goes up, kind of pumps a little bit and kind of simmers, I'll just like leave the bag for a while, or I'll eventually just kind of cut the position. So it's just like with other alts. You want to hold the ones that are showing strength. And if they just keep chopping and nothing's going on, then I'll just try to either move on or just kind of hold it and kind of consider it a loss, and then eventually move that money to something that looks more attractive.
Before we go, I really want to ask you one more question. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned from trading?
It's a lot of lessons. Again, with the patience, you just have to be so patient in this space, and it moves so fast. And I think that's the hardest part for everyone to realize is like, we're in a 24/7 market. There's always opportunities. People are making money so quick, and you always feel left behind, and you're always looking at prices. Like, you have to slow it down. And if you can limit your trades to very few a month, or you can stop looking at prices, like, this is the one space, the less you do, the more I promise you will make. And that is just, again, it's taken me 3 years to do it. I'm not saying it's easy, but it takes a long time to kind of slow everything down. You have to trust the process. And if you're using good risk management, like, you're going to be here for bear and bull markets. If you're just going all in emotional, you're going to be gone here soon. But I would just say, just really slow things down, be patient, and then just don't worry about other people. Don't worry about, oh, they're making so much in NFTs. Oh, they're making so much in microcaps. They're killing it here, blah, blah. Just do you, slow it down, and just trust that over time, if you're more patient and less emotional than everyone else, you will beat them. And that's something that's what I would recommend.
Thanks. That's a great lesson for people to know. And I'm sure many have learned themselves, as we both have. All right, man. It was really cool to learn about how you use Super Trend because I've always been more curious about that. And I had no idea about any of that stuff on CoinGecko, how to search the low caps. So I'm definitely going to dig into that a little bit more. It looks super helpful. And because there's really good money to be made if you get into projects early, especially good projects. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And it was great to have you on here. If you don't follow Income Sharks on Twitter, it's very simple. It is at Income Sharks. Make sure to follow him. He's a great guy, a very successful trader, and he posts amazing content. And he's never going to post just anything just to like get a reaction out of people, and post bullish meme stuff at highs or bearish memes at lows. Very grounded. It's good to have grounded traders and grounded analysis on your feed to help keep you from getting stuck in the emotions. So thanks again for joining me, man. If you guys have any questions, please post them down in the comments below. Otherwise, we will catch you next time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. Peace, guys.
See ya.